comes back to something Becca has said before, which was the need to have advance warning of what's going to be on the agenda.
Okay.
And it also comes back to the dispute we had over a consent item being reconsidered. And I think it'll address that in such a way that will hopefully satisfy people.
Okay.
So a proposal regarding reconsideration of consent items that were consensed without advance notice.
Okay. Can I ask you something? Would you consider making a proposal tonight, and we could have a small discussion of them tonight, like with the time? Would you actually be nice to her?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Because I think I can.
Well, now we're not doing
I think I can do that. Would you consider like having a short discussion of it tonight? Because we're getting bigger. We might actually move to like a big enough group.
If we have a large enough group,
Then okay.
Otherwise.
Well, actually, if we go with her proposal, we would have to announce the proposal and then wait until next GA to actually vote on it.
Well, not quite, but
I'm keeping in mind that we had like 3 events, big events in like 3 days, and we're all a little soft and tender. At least I am. I don't know about you guys. So, any other agenda items?
Just a quick refresher on timekeeping.
When you're going to have like a discussion, we'll give it a certain amount of time, and you'll keep the time.
Okay.
Okay.
not sure that it needs to be a proposal, but a call to return to more of a formal process of handling proposals, where we hear concerns, hear friendly amendments,
Clarifying questions.
I'm feeling like we were going to vision about consensus as a small group, and all the proposals are about consensus. Maybe we should vision about consensus as a small group as our visioning question.
Sure.
So can we do vision question first, or report back first?
No, vision. I think we do visioning first.
Okay. Should we move to visioning?
Yes.
Do we want to break into 2 groups, or do we want to do
No, just one group.
Okay. So we go informal. And I guess is this the whole spirit of the law, letter of the law?
It is, and breakdowns in the process, because I think we've all witnessed them.
Okay.
No,
Our visioning question is on consensus. And actually, I'm going to facilitate this for a minute. When we talked about doing a visioning question about consensus, we actually said at the time that we wanted to take more than 1 GA to do it, that we didn't expect to resolve all of our questions and feelings about consensus in one 10-minute visioning session at the beginning of 1 GA. And I think we are a small group, and even if we weren't a small group, that we would still want more people to have input and bring this over more GAs. So there's been concern about several aspects of consensus. Stephanie has brought up our issues around procedures with consensus, what procedures we follow, how they're followed, whether they're followed through on. People have brought up the issue of blocks, both feeling like when we make a block, when someone makes a block, that we then don't have a process as a group to work through it. And also the issue of waiting for someone who will make a block to not be in the meeting, and that not really being the spirit of working in consensus. I know one of the questions that kind of facilitation had kind of come up with was the spirit of consensus as well as the letter of the law, that we can follow all the procedures and still not really be honoring what consensus is or could be. So our visioning question might be, what would we like our consensus to look like, or what do we each think consensus brings to the group, or how it could work?
That sounds good to me.
Okay.
I would like clarification on the difference between a thumbs down and a block, because it seems to me that there's a subtle difference between the two.
A what? I'm sorry.
Between a thumbs down and a block.
Why don't we talk about
Consent.
the visioning part about...
That is part of the visioning.
Well, the question I heard that I was thinking about is what would you like to see from it personally?
Well,
What does it mean?
Okay, can I clarify the difference between a this and a this? As I understand it, primarily from hearing it described, not here, this is like, a no vote, and it's also kind of more of an expression of letting the majority, whereas this is, I would lead the movement over this issue because I feel that this is not in keeping with the zeitgeist of Occupy.
Okay. I'll also answer that. A lot of groups, or a lot of deliberative bodies that follow formal consensus or strict consensus have a process rather than addressing support, non-support, and blocks at the same time. Have a formal process for getting the concerns out, getting the friendly amendments out, and hearing reservations, and then hearing blocks. A reservation is a strong principled objection to a matter, but you'll still honor the group's decision. So that's this. That is, I absolutely disagree with this, but I'm not going to walk away from the group because of it, and I'm not going to stop the group. Those are still very serious matters, and when you hear one, the group should take. When you hear one, the group should take a step back and go, okay, maybe we got a problem. When you hear several, you don't have consensus.
This is my understanding. However, my understanding is also that one may block without necessarily voting oneself off the other.
But I think we should stick with the idea of the question, starting with what you want from it.
And what do we want from consensus?
From consensus.
Well,
and then we're back to the against.
Maybe I'm being backwards here. That's not even nice. But this will help me understand that we can achieve consensus, for instance, even if let's say, if I vote thumbs down. Okay, that still is going to be a de facto consensus. If all the thumbs are up or to the side, that is a de jure consensus. One thumbs down is still a consensus, but it's a slightly less original consensus. A block is going to prevent the possibility of a consensus on the matter at hand. That's my understanding.
Well, let me say what I would like to get out of this. I mean, to me, the consensus is important because it helps us have everybody buy into a decision. And if we can't find a decision that we can all buy into, then we have to sort of take a step back to find what level can we find this decision. It's sort of part of the alchemy of having a group with very different opinions on something. And in the end, if you do it right, I think that you could have in addition to having a better decision, you had developed much stronger ties with the people you're working with. So I would like to see it consensus approached as a way to understand each other as well as for a way to make decisions.
Yeah, I definitely echo that. I see consensus as the process determining what the collective will of a group is by including all of the voices in that group and by mutual agreement. So that nobody's left out, nobody feels slighted, everybody is at least somewhat satisfied with the outcome, even though we may not all be completely satisfied, everyone at least finds the actions acceptable.
Who else?
Well, that's what the small group district is all about.
I really like what Steve said about that it's a way to understand each other. But what I think happens before we start doing proposals and trying to come to consensus is the fact that there's been a discussion preemptively. There's been a discussion around whatever the issue is, and now we're ready to make a formal proposal and vote on it and reach consensus or not. So I would hope that when we get to that point that everybody has felt heard. So I think that's a piece to consider. And then the other thing at the tail end of it was what Stephanie said about after we've all voted and we've reached consensus, and then all of a sudden it's not consensus on because somebody had something else to say. That seems really confusing to me, and I think we could come up with a better way. And I don't have any ideas, but maybe we could come up with a better way to handle that when somebody does not feel heard or miss the meeting or didn't get information that they needed and now need to change their mind. So.
I just want to echo a comment about our organization about consensus that's been mentioned 3 or 4 times in the past that I think is extremely germane to some of the problems we're having, and that is when we see a big issue that's coming up, a big topic of discussion that's going to be a big vote, and if we could allow some time for that process to happen. All right. And so, some people feel frustrated because they can't get here. So if we could give, say, a week's notice on a big vote that's coming up, that would be great. And also consider arranging some kind of online proxy system where folks who cannot be here because of various obligations could cast their votes. And give folks a week to be fully informed about the decision. And I would much like us to avoid what happened either last week or the week before, where we consensed on something and then the facilitator chose not to act on what was consensed on. And I was surprised by the thing, and it seemed to be not in the best interest of the group. And so I'd just like to avoid that kind of thing. So.
I'd like to speak next because in part it's speaking to that, what happened the other week. I'm not really sure we actually came to consensus. And part of the concept of consensus is that it keeps us from having the exact system that we see in this country that we want to do away with, which is a sort of dominating force that's over a minority. And of course what we have is a minority, but the minority has the majority of the resources dominating the majority. But in groups what tends to happen is there can be a majority that dominates a minority and of people. And if we all really want to work together, then it can't be about 70% of the people want this and 30% of the people want that, so the 70% is going to outvote the 30%. Not if we want to work together. If we don't want to work together, then it kind of doesn't matter. But You know, the other week we got really caught up in the let's move through the agenda, and I was really clearly saying in that particular meeting, I'm not being heard and there are other voices not being heard. And it was like, okay, let's just get to a vote and get this over with. So I don't think we came to consensus. And a piece of it for me was as well that while the group had been meeting and talking about what to do around really specific issues, the diversity of our group really hadn't been acknowledged, and it was just a weird situation because there were so many people out of town. But that happens. If tonight this group, the majority of people in this group wanted to graffiti the post office, I would be like, wait, you know, we have a number of people in our group who have agreed that we should never graffiti the post office. It's one, and I really think that that's something that we need to keep in mind, is that we're really a diverse body, and if there are voices that are absent from the room, we still need to be honoring them if we still want to work with those people and have them participating. And we've run a lot of people off. There's been, and I think a lot of it is our drive to get something done, pass something, take a vote on it. Consensus is not about voting, it's about listening and holding space.
That brings me to something else. I have noticed that frustrations are very high within this group, particularly within our GAs. That has led to a tremendous rush because we feel like this process takes too long. Consensus is intentionally a slow, deliberate process, but I think it has kind of gotten off course here, that we've gotten out of touch with the process, and, you know, as Mary said, part of it is making sure all the voices are being heard, but part of it also is the facilitator's role is to make the space for all the voices to be heard, and we have seen some serious lapses in facilitation out of frustration with the process and frustration with how the process is going, and the slumping down of people towards the end of a 2-hour-long GA, and everybody wants to go home. We make that, and that encourages. That is the very kind of situation that lets us make short-sighted decisions, that lets us make bad decisions, that lets us make decisions that don't include the group, because nobody wants to be the squeaky wheel when we've been here for 2 or 3 hours. Everybody's tired, everybody wants to go home. So we need to have a conscious effort to make sure that our deliberations are careful, that the voices are being heard, and that we make space.
So we've got 2 people here we have not heard from at all.
And do we want 5 more minutes to hear from the people we haven't heard from?
I'm on a learning curve, so I'm just listening.
And I kind of came in late, so I didn't hear exactly what the question is.
Our visioning question is, what do you want from consensus, or what would you like to see come from consensus?
I don't know. I think people here have pretty much said most of everything. I don't really have anything right now. Maybe if I think about it. So.
I can add that the facilitation group, I think we should separate out what is consensus, what's the spirit of consensus, kind of what we're talking about now, versus the process of how we get it. Because the process is in place to sort of put a protective barrier around the spirit of it. But we have to just start from what we really want. And I've heard someone say it as, I was saying there's a way to get to understand each other. I like the view that consensus is listening. I think that's a nice way to put it as well. But I know that in our drive to just get something done, we're trying to we're more focused on the process of it than on the spirit of it. And so I think it helps to take more time. I like Harry's idea. I think taking more time helps in making sure our process doesn't run over our spirit.
I would like to say something briefly about the one time that I blocked, and you were facilitating at the time. You made an immediate suggestion, which I accepted, although the proposer did not. However, the proposer then came back and said, whatever you all decide, I'm okay with it. If I recall, it was you, me, and Harry who met at Four Corners, and we worked it out. And we then brought it back and were able to achieve consensus. That's a little bulky, that's a little cumbersome, but it worked. That was just taking a little more time, a bump in the road or two, but it worked. And the one other major block that I can recall, one of the other two would be will, and I think that would have to be considered an aberration. The most recent issue, however, was a very, very rushed GA. People were frustrated. I don't think we still have that level of frustration, Stephanie, because I'm not at the camp. You might be frustrated, but I'm not at the camp. And you're still maybe decompressing from that. I don't know. It's just a suggestion. But I think that we can be reasonably deliberative in the future. I hope we don't blow this up too much. What I'm hearing is that consensus is actually more of a synthesis than anything else. And if we just go through the hard work of doing that, I hope we don't make it out to be more of a problem than it is. I do agree with Harry, though, that there should be some way to have representation. I do have a problem, though, with are we going to require that agendas be determined in advance if things do come up?
I'd like to point out that tonight when I was looking at the General Assembly thing to read over what the meeting process was, I saw at the bottom things to remember, and in other groups that I'm in, that's actually called group agreement. But I've never heard the group agreements gone over at the beginning of a meeting. It's sort of like a kind of standard facilitation thing that's used a lot formally. And it's something that we might want to consider doing as part of our meeting process is to go over the group agreements at the beginning of meetings and have everyone consent again on, this is something I've seen done with people at the Orange County Dispute Settlement Center uses this. Every meeting you read your group agreements again, which are these 5 things, and you consent again, yes, we're going to do this for this meeting. And it gets everyone in the mindset of holding that space.
So, I would like to say some stuff. I think it would be helpful if proposals were brought ahead of time. Totally agree with that. To give people time to talk about it, ask questions, concerns, get the information, go through the process, and then vote on it at the next GA. Send the proposal out to the listserv so people that were not here can read it, then they can read the minutes and see other people's questions or ask questions through the listserv. Well, what about this? What about that? And that way, by the next GA, we would have talked about it, thought about it, and then we could vote on it with more information and more time to process. And I think that would help with the not feeling rushed. Because when you have, 10 or 15 minutes to hear a proposal, talk about a proposal, hear everyone's thoughts, make sure everyone agrees, and then vote on it, that's pretty rushed to do something if it's an important proposal. So I would like for us to actually think about submitting proposals at one GA and then not voting on them. I mean, if it's something that needs to be voted on right away, then we can make an exception. You know, like if we need to put out a press release or something important that needs to happen. But we would wait until the next GA to vote on it.
How about the discussion, what sort of the form of that, and that might accommodate some of what Harry mentioned about a virtual process, because people who are not able to physically attend the GAs could then make their voices heard by proxy, maybe not vote by proxy. I'm not sure about how that would work logistically, but their voices would be heard, and others could then represent their voices, or perhaps come to accept once that they're still making themselves.
We've come to the end of our 5 minutes.
Can I make one comment?
Okay. One comment, and then I think we should move to a working group report.
Just a comment about thinking about consensus as we move into Occupy Chapel Hill version 2.0, which to me is different from 1.0, where we were establishing ourselves, learning to work together. We had an encampment, doing things in many cases for the first time. With the general agreement that we want more direct action in Occupy Chapel Hill 2.0, that we think about consensus in terms of direct action. Not that we need to rush anything or rush into direct action, but just keep that in mind, that instead of focusing on nuancing a particular argument, which we're all great, but thinking about issues in terms of direct action. I'd like to marry that direct action component with our consensus building process.
Okay. Working group report back. Steve?
Well, I'm on the facilitation working group, and I'm thinking that we should probably talk about a little bit about how to protect the spirit of consensus in our process, and maybe take some of the ideas that we heard here and work out a proposal to bring back to the GA. So,
and I would like to move that, we have a very great discussion of some ideas, since we've got several members of facilitation here.
Working group report back. We don't have proposals on working group report back. Okay. Are there any other working group report backs?
yeah, I have several things, and I'm always a little confused as to whether I'm doing a report back on an announcement. I'm a little fuzzy, so as facilitator, cut me off if you think I'm bleeding over into announcements.
Okay.
Okay? Yeah. Good. Don't give her that power.
He can't give me power. I can only have power.
I'm not interested in giving her power. I trust that she has her best interests in mind, and I'm not worried.
Women have power without you men giving it to us.
We're not debating what I want to do. Harry is speaking.
I'm proud to be a postmodern feminist.
Patrick just called you out on that.
That's fine. Glad to have a discussion. I like that. But as part of outreach, I thought that since next Friday is Occupy the Courts Day, as a response to the 2-year anniversary of the
Citizens United
decision by the Supreme Court, that it might be good for us to have a 30-minute, relatively brief teach-in by an expert on corporate personhood. And so I called that person today, a friend of mine, and she has agreed, if we agree that we want that for next Thursday, the day before Occupy the Courts Day, from 7 to 7:30, that would work for her. And I wouldn't have asked her if she was not an expert, and I sort of had to ask her today before I asked anybody in Occupy. So Tana Hartman, she did a wonderful workshop on corporate personhood at the WILF conference in June, the Women International League of Peace and Freedom. So
next Thursday from 7 to 7:30, temperature check?
GA's at 6.
Yeah, I know, but I was wondering if to schedule it from 7 to 7:30 at Thursday's GA.
Oh, during GA.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Right. So.
Or it would be after GA. GA is at 6, and that would be at 7.
Right.
Well, yeah, but
We could schedule it as part of. It's just that I wanted to accommodate her schedule if possible. She has family stuff. So, can I call her back? I mean, we're small. Is it okay to?
There's not, yeah, it's just a 30-minute limit, and that's about it.
She's not going to lecture for 30 minutes. She'll do an overview for 10 minutes and then open it to questions. And that's the way I presented it to her, and she's easy with that. Okay?
It's awesome.
So, I will call her tomorrow and finalize that. Thanks, guys. There's a teach-in this Sunday. It's going to be excellent at iBooks from 1 to 2:30. Unwittingly support that war through taxes and a range of other sort of invisible behaviors that we go through. Hope you'll go. Sunday 1 to 2:30, and I'll post on the listserv about that. Betsy is about as knowledgeable and engaging a speaker as it gets. So that's 2 down. Steve hatched a plan that he and I have lunch every Thursday at Med Deli, and that we open it to any occupier who can join us. You'd be sort of sitting down for an hour or 2, individuals of questionable character.
Well, whoever comes.
Yeah.
Med Deli. Yeah.
So,
what time?
Thursdays at noon at Med Deli. 4th, for the January 21st foreclosure forum across the street at UUMC, Ann Shy, an occupier and a local attorney, has requested help from us. And she would like 10 volunteers to do really easy tasks. 5 folks have stepped up so far, and we will appreciate it if we can get 5 more volunteers. Now the tasks are easy. It will involve like moving and setting up handouts on tables, picking up food, somebody standing in the Hill Hall parking lot to guide people inside, set up the food at 12:30, help form queues so that folks can get in line to speak with attorneys, and to help put tables and chairs back at the end of the program. You wouldn't have to stay for the whole program from 9 to 11. You could just put in 30 minutes and you would be done. But we really would like to get 5 more volunteers to help with that. This is a week from Saturday.
You have me on there, right?
Pardon?
You have me on there?
No, I don't.
Okay. I'm picking up the Mama Dip's food.
Oh, I thought that Barb was.
Oh, well, then maybe I can do something else with Barb. I told Ann on Sunday.
Thanks, Becca. That gives us 6. We only need 4 more, and I'll post.
I think, is Lila on there?
No.
Okay.
No,
Lila and I talked to Ann, so maybe she just forgot to put us on the list.
Excellent. So that's 7. We just need 3 more.
Are you going to be there?
Pardon? Oh, of course. I'm one of the 7 volunteers.
If you can provide transportation before my meeting, then I'll be happy.
Yeah, I'll pick you up. And would you remind me about that, Ron?
Just ask you to remind me.
Well.
I'll remind you.
Deal. Finally, Saturday week, right. So I would pick you up at 9:30. Final thing. A couple of weeks ago I mentioned this issue about billboards. And that there's a hearing in Raleigh on January 19th. Our situation with billboards now is that Department of Transportation engineers hire local tree cutting companies to clear areas around billboards so that passing motorists can see the advertising on the billboards. The rules are fuzzy as to how extensive they can clear. And the tree cutting companies take full advantage and clear way too much. There's extensive clear cutting. Taxpayers are paying the tree cutting companies to do the work. Then the tree cutting companies are selling the wood as either chips or if the trees are large enough as timber. The rules are purposely vague. There's a public hearing on it next Thursday in Raleigh, at which I will testify, and anybody else who wants to. So I just want to make folks aware of that. I have a slideshow with me tonight that takes about 5 minutes after the GA. If anybody wants to see it, I'll crank up the computer and I'll be glad to show it. It's quite alarming. We're being scammed. You know, these tree cutting companies are clear cutting unnecessarily and too extensively. And they're making money on our dime. You know, and it is an example of collusion between the state and private corporations. And it's our chance to step up. It may seem like a minor issue, but it's not. Last year, the state paid $12 million to private tree cutting companies. So.
I think we're moving toward announcements. Working group report back. Any more working group report back? Steve and then me.
Okay, outreach would like to report that we received a donation from the Society for Ethical Culture, which was written out to me, so I'm going to go party. I'll cash the check for $41.
Nice.
And it's for Occupy. So they said this is their contribution. Eva Harrington, treasurer, to help our efforts.
Fantastic.
So I will cash this check and donate it to Occupy Chapel Hill tomorrow.
Fantastic.
Then tonight, Rosemarie and I were on WCOM with John Cole, James Cole, had a program and asked us to talk about Occupy, so we did. Good show.
Steve?
I have to go pick up the kids. This was not my report back. The report back was on the occupied courts a week from this Friday. The idea was to go meet at University Mall, carpool over to Raleigh, and the carpool over there like at 9:30, and I don't know, stay until we're sick of it. So, can I get twinkles about who might be interested in going?
It's the 20th?
Okay. The 20th, yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
I wish I could go.
okay, good.
I'll have to go later because I have an appointment at 9.
Bye, Steve.
Okay, Stephanie, working group report back.
Yes. We have a new group of legal observers formed. Want to remind the group that legal observers are available for any events that warrant them, such as particularly direct actions, or any event where there may be likely to be civil disobedience, or likely conflict with the police. Legal observers don't necessarily need to know what you're planning, but we need to know when we need to be available. You can give Eli a heads up if we need, and you can give the new legal observer list a heads up. The sooner you give that notice, the more people are likely to be able to be out there, and the more likely it's able to be covered. You know, again, sooner the better.
Okay, direct action working group report back. First of all, the direct action working group meets 6:30 here at the post office every Monday until further notice. We occupied Hargraves Community Center park in the rain in the torrential downpour, during which someone decided that was the ideal time to put up their tent. This sets the precedent in the town of Chapel Hill for us to occupy public spaces, which, of course, we had some question about whether or not that was just being permitted at Peace and Justice Plaza and whether or not it might meet with arrest in other places. So we were very happy that it didn't. We worked with Hargrave's Community Center director, and we put our banners on our cars on the street instead of attaching them to fences within the park, and just sort of worked around things, but did what we went out there to do, which was serve food, hand out literature, and camp for the night. So our next Occupy will be Carrboro Town Hall, in front of the Town Hall. Friday, January 20th, we'll be getting there in the afternoon. We'll be sleeping over. We'd really like this to be big, family involvement. It'll be going on during the farmers market the next morning. So the more the merrier. And hopefully there will be a turn to that.
That's the question. How did it go last night?
It was wet and cold.
I couldn't believe that downpour that happened while you were saying.
I couldn't either, and the tents were not really completely we were literally putting up the tents during it. It went well. David and Liz handed out a lot of literature up at the door, and we kind of had like two different sets of literature. So the things that were handed out at the door were more flyers about the foreclosure workshop, and then the flyer from the Monday March, which we had all consented on, and then what we had down at the soup table and area was a greater variety of flyers and information and literature that we had amassed. And we did give away some of that. People came and went all night. Jill and Candace came out. Becca was there, and Lila. Someone from Occupy Boston came and camped with us.
Colin.
Kindly neighbors opened up their bathrooms so that we had facilities. And so we took many walks during the night, and it went well. And as far as working with the center, we definitely bent some of the rules. We brought our own rocket stove instead of using a grill because we were making soup, and they kind of came out and weren't thrilled about it, but they also weren't, no, you can't do that. So, went well.
Good.
And the CPAC meeting was going on.
Media. I was there and you streamed it all. So if you want to watch what happened, there's about 4.5 to 5 hours of Ustream video of the whole night. So, and I also got some of the meeting inside, and I got the public commentary, which was actually really great to watch, and David was fantastic. So lots of Ustream videos. And then as for finance, T-shirt sales are on the up. We have another batch coming out, and we're going to be selling them at Internationalist Books. They should be getting there any day now. So now we can send people somewhere. They don't have just to find Diane to buy a shirt, so that'll be good. We have almost $1,000 saved at this point. So, and we're down to, I think, 300 before we started selling cookies and T-shirts. So that's pretty good, But we're not spending anything, so that's really important. So we're just sort of squirreling it away for something important. And that's it.
Okay.
Healthcare working group. There's a group, I might want to let everybody know about this, that is meeting on Saturday from noon to 2 at the Shannon Road Durham Library, which is a healthcare group. It was started by Katya, and it's in liaison with Durham Occupy, And Jonathan Koch, who is a doctor here at UNC, is going to be there, and there are going to be some health professionals there. We're going to be talking about how we can make things happen for medical care for everyone in North Carolina. I think he's in charge of healthcare NC, which is healthcare for all NC. So if you're interested, it's on the listserv or the discussion group. I don't know which one it's on. Have you been on that? The discussion. There is an actual discussion group.
And now the circulating of the popcorn. Okay, so if we don't have more working group reports back, we move to agenda items. Can you read the agenda items to us again, since we don't have a dry erase marker?
So, well, the first one was the tabling of the visioning, which we already did. And then proposal, need for advanced agenda notice. And then dispute of consent item being reconsidered. And formalize handling proposals.
Okay. So, Stephanie, as I understood it, we were willing to make the proposals tonight and have a short discussion and then bring them up. Since one of the proposals is a proposal about making proposals to bring them up later, should we stick with the spirit of the proposal and make them tonight and discuss shortly and then bring them up again for the group to explore further?
Yes.
Right.
So I'll bring, and this kind of builds on what both Becca and Harry said. First, we'll deal with proposals in advance. This is two parts. The first proposal is that all proposals will have at least 24 hours notice prior to the GA in which they are discussed, or should have at least 24 hours notice, either by appearing in the published agenda, by appearing as a tabled item from the previous GA, or by notice otherwise given on the Occupy Chapel Hill listserv that you intend to bring the item on the agenda. So 24 hours notice. And that it is encouraged to table items that are brought without the 24 hours notice.
Is this the second part?
This is still the first part. The second proposal related to that is that any proposal that reaches the GA, either from the floor or otherwise with less than 24 hours notice, any member may object after the meeting to that proposal and ask that the item be brought back to a full GA, or to the next full GA. And that applies to any proposal that comes to the GA with less than 24 hours notice, whether it comes from the floor or whether it comes, a last minute. And that'll be 24 hours from when we announce that a proposal has reached consensus, either through a separate announcement or through being posted in the minutes. So you have 24 hours from when you learn that we reached consensus on something last minute to say, wait, no, I didn't get a chance to speak up.
Okay. Ron, Bert, Becca.
Besides the fact that I think it would proposal would benefit from concision, is the caveat necessary at all? Because it's my understanding that proposals can be revisited.
May I direct response to that? Proposals can be revisited. However, as it stands now, you would need new consensus to overturn them, whereas with a reservation or a block, a block one person could stop the proposal originally. If you didn't know the proposal was going to be brought before the GA, then you've been denied your opportunity to speak, and you've turned it into majority rule rather than.
I think we're moving beyond. We
change should have to, if possible, in the first part, and I still think it would benefit from consideration. I'd like to see it in writing, because there seems to be an awful lot of potential time bombs and all of that verbiage.
Sir, may I attempt to clarify?
Well, it's nothing to clarify. There's nothing to clarify.
To say and hear what Becca has to say, because they've also been waiting.
Okay.
The comment that you must visit it within 24 hours to me seems totally unrealistic. There are no minutes. There have been GAs with the minutes been here for almost a week. So that to me is not even realistic. There was one GA where we never got minutes.
Many GAs, not just one. Yeah, many.
Yeah. So to me, we need to deal with that somehow. There needs to be out of 24 hours after the minutes appear on the website or something like that.
So, sort of going along with what Stephanie says, but this is sort of my amendment to what she says, is that you would bring the proposal to the GA, you would present your proposal, and then people could ask you questions about it. But you don't vote on it until the next GA. And you can send it out to the listserv so other people can get it, or you can read it on the minutes, just so other people get a chance to see the proposal, and they have until the next GA to think about it or vote on it. And then what she was saying about having 24 hours to block or whatever, I think you wouldn't have to do that if you presented the proposal at one GA and waited the 3 or 4 days to the next one. So that would be my idea.
The being able to block after the fact only would apply if we waived the advance notice for some reason. So it's basically enforcement of that.
Okay, let me see if I can clarify that. So there's the proposal about the advance notice, but if, for instance, we had the consensus on the fact that aliens were descending on the building and we made an action, then the part about 24 hours notice would apply to that particular situation when something was consensus on, even though the proposal hadn't been made in advance?
Correct.
Okay, so they're two separate proposals.
Separate proposals.
Okay. More discussion?
Well, I really like the spirit of the proposal, and I like the spirit of all the comments that were made. But I am influenced by Bert's comment that while giving folks advance notice is a great idea, I think that 24 hours might be a little short. I mean, ideally for me it would be a week, and that would give folks a chance to participate and share their views online and communicate with other occupiers and maybe attend a GA in the interim before the vote on the proposal, just to, in the spirit of inclusiveness, I know a week seems a long time, but that's about as fair as I can imagine the process being.
So maybe 2 GAs in advance then? Is that what you mean? Like if it was presented on a Sunday, then you would vote on it on a Thursday kind of thing?
The following Sunday.
The following Sunday.
Yeah.
Okay. Right.
Okay, I want to take off my facilitator hat and have a comment. We're still talking about voting and not consenting.
Wait.
I mean, just so we kind of that clarification again. With consensus, I mean...
That wasn't her proposal, though.
I know, but I'm just back and forth.
But that wasn't...
I'm just pointing out that, like, we still are falling back on we'll bring it up on Sunday and we'll talk about it, and then the next Sunday there'll be a vote, and it sounds like there'll be a vote and it will be resolved. Well, if we don't come to consensus on that Sunday, we still will be working toward coming to consensus. It's not about just having, like, the vote. That was just my comment. I know I'm putting my facilitator hat back on. I'm sorry. It's okay. It's not used to me.
So consensus versus vote.
I'm just saying that we're still using the language of, like, we'll come to a vote. Like, we'll have a vote. Like, something would come up Sunday, and the next Sunday we would have a vote. well, we may have a vote that still doesn't bring us to consensus. And I just wanted to point that out. Sorry, I wasn't clear the first time. Ron and Bert.
No, Bert.
Bert and Ron.
Point of information on what you just said is that it could be tabled at that to be at the next meeting. So it's not a consensus. It is not.
Right. Or there could be a block that we needed to work through in some way, but we weren't going to be able to work through it that night because people were tired or worn out or exhausted or just needed to go sit in that deli together. But Ron?
There have been a number of opinions expressed to me, frustration due to the number of times items have been tabled. It seems to me that if there is simply a spirit of the GA that, when possible, we will get proposals up on the discussion listserv in advance without formalizing it, that essentially resolves the problem. Because I'm concerned that we're structuring ourselves so that we're taking away flexibility. And I think if there's just a spirit which has not existed in the past, that if we, whenever possible, take agenda items, get them up on the discussion listserv so that people can have input, so there can be a genuine back and forth, then that the problem is basically resolved without institutionalizing this whole situation. And then if the problems do arise from it, then we have to go back and tinker with it.
Becca?
What would you say about bringing it to a GA to announce it and do the listserv? Just because some people aren't on the listserv, so bringing it to the GA would be the official, like, this is the proposal that I am going to bring on Sunday. And then you send out the proposal on the listserv. So it's just a way to announce what the proposal is going to be so people can think about it and figure out what the questions are. They can discuss it after GA. They can ask their questions. And then you would discuss it at when you present it at the next GA.
I like it. I'm sorry, it's back and forth.
Direct response.
It's back and forth, but I'll acknowledge you.
There is direct response.
I would like this to be as inclusive as democratic process as possible.
Right.
So that there is as much input as possible, as much response to any proposed proposals. Redundant. That was fine for me. Just leave it at that.
Well.
I mean,
okay. Done. Becca says.
This is a very, very dynamic thing. It's less than 3 months old. We're just beginning to get the second trimester, for God's sake.
Right.
So, let's not accumulate all these warnings. I know that's not the most rational comment you've ever heard in your life. But
So we're past the morning sickness phase?
I'm trying to rephrase this for clarity.
So is there more discussion right now?
Oh, this is a great comment. It seems if the agenda items are posted on the listserv a week in advance of the meeting, of a meeting, or when they will be addressed, as Harry has suggested, that gives enough time for people who are particularly involved in, engaged with, or passionate about an item that will be addressed at a certain time, for them to either make arrangements to be there so they can be part of the consensus or block it, or to have a representative for them come and communicate their concerns. So it seems like it's pretty simple.
Is there more discussion? How about Stephanie, and I'm going to take a temperature check on continuing the discussion.
I would say, given as glacially slow as this body has been in the past, and the possibility of an issue being repeatedly tabled, as has been the norm for this body, that a week might be too long. I think from one GA to the next is reasonable. A week is not. I initially thought 24 hours was reasonable. I think maybe one GA to the next is a reasonable compromise. So I'm rephrasing this. The first part is all proposals should be introduced and discussed in GA and then brought back to be offered for further discussion and consensus in the following GA.
Can I respond to
And I'm wording that as a should, because there are situations where we have to make a decision quicker than that.
Bert, then Becca, and then we're going to do the temperature check.
Seems that we might want to recognize that as part of the process of the Democratic group, if a proposal is continually tabled, that it may be that there's a good reason for that, and that does not necessarily mean there's a malfunction or dysfunction of the GA process.
Does that mean me? Oh. I would say that if we bring it to GA and discuss it, and then bring it to the next GA and discuss it again, we're discussing it twice. So that's why my idea was just bring the proposal and announce this is what the proposal is going to be, and then discuss it at the next GA. So that way people just know what the proposal is going to be. They can ask that person later or discuss it on the listserv or talk about it outside of the GA and then come back with prepared questions at the next GA.
Since we're not prepared to consensus on this tonight, I'd like to get a temperature check on ending the discussion of this and bringing it back to the next GA. Okay.
May I ask a question? Why can't we consent on it?
Well, for one thing, we talked before about the whole fact that it's a proposal about proposals needing to be brought up so that people know that they're being brought up. It's sort of a meta thing.
I feel like we're close to at least a workable wording. So.
May I make a suggestion that your proposal be posted so that it can be perused and discussed by people, and then we can talk about it on Sunday and get a better group.
Is it possible that we could have both wordings of the proposal in the minutes and then people could look at both?
Yeah.
I've got it with Becca's comments now as proposals should be introduced in one GA and then offered for discussion and consensus in the following.
Well, I like it because it's what I thought.
And I do still want to address the language of being able to back out because we didn't really discuss that fully. We were focused on the first one, if that's reasonable. So that any proposal that doesn't follow the process of advance notice have until the next GA for someone to call for any binding decisions to be reconsidered and offered for new consensus.
So that's the other proposal?
Yes.
Okay.
To basically say, I did not have the opportunity to respond because the process was not followed. You made a binding decision. I want it revisited.
Do they have to be here physically to do that? I'm sorry.
I would say that they can call for that on the mailing list and issue their concerns, and that at the very least their concerns need to be heard at the next GA before it can be offered for consensus again.
So anyone can issue any concern on the list, or we're going to have to address that at the next GA.
only if if whatever process we adopt for advance notice of proposals was not followed. Only if the process was abbreviated. If it went out with if we adopt posted one GA and then the next, or a week, or whatever we adopt.
Explain that on the listserv, maybe.
I'll explain on the listserv. Apparently it's not as clear as everybody else it was to me.
I think the consensus, pretty new to the group and the process, but to me, consensus has to apply as long as we have a democratic process that Stephanie is proposing, that it's on the web, that people have advance notice, that it's not just something, nothing is on spur of the moment. The consensus ought to be, I hate to use the word binding, but that we don't back out of the consensus. That is just Republican.
I would like to say that I think that if we present the proposal and then give it till the next GA to consent or not consent on something, I would think that's enough time for somebody to speak up, and I don't think that we should give it till another GA for someone to come forward. I think 2 GAs is enough time for someone to see what's going on and make a decision.
Right. I'm only talking about if for some reason something passes if for some reason we waive this rule and we pass it in a single GA.
So you're saying, sorry.
I'm sorry, point of information. We talked about that, the proposal, that this would be, just to clarify, if we had to consent on something, because aliens were landing on the building, we had to make a decision right then.
Okay.
And it went to the listserv, aliens landed on the building, and we decided to negotiate with them, and someone on the listserv was like, oh my God, I've met those aliens, and...
So this is only if the first rule doesn't happen, then the second one does.
Right. If
Got it.
something has to be acted on, and there's 24 hours for someone to go, wait, no, that's not.
Okay.
That's the proposal.
So send it to the listserv then? Is that what we're doing?
Yeah.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you.
Any more discussion?
Friendly amendment would be to say that it would have to occur in the first GA after the minutes were posted.
But if that minute doesn't get posted...
Then until those minutes are posted, the window is open.
Yeah.
Huh.
That way you can't plead ignorance or disinformation.
Okay.
More discussion?
Yeah.
So we'll be looking at this proposal again on, what day is it?
Sunday.
Thursday. We'll be looking at it again on Sunday. Do we have another agenda item?
Well, I have a question.
Okay.
Are we doing anything for MLK Day?
Vacating the plaza?
No, well, we already did that. I'm saying they're having like a celebration here. Are we joining? Are we doing anything for, do we?
A lot of occupiers will be here, Becca.
Okay.
A lot of occupiers. I always attend this thing regularly for years.
Okay.
You know, and, I mean, I'll be handing out foreclosure flyers and hope to have time to get to the service at Baptist Church on Rogerson.
Okay.
Would it be possible to, under our events, to note that Monday is MLK Day and there's a celebration beginning at 9 a.m. and that it is not an occupied one?
I think it's already up. I think it's already saying what they have already planned is already up on the events. I just didn't know we were, that's all. But the other thing is that what they're doing is up with whoever they are.
Do you want to be a speaker from Occupy on the agenda? Because there are speakers out here from like 9 to 10.
I did.
Because originally I think there was going to be a representative from Occupy.
I am the wrong person to ask.
Should we put MLK Day on the Sunday agenda and try to clarify some
Yes.
questions that
Yes.
we're coming up with?
Yes.
So one of the questions I'm hearing is there a speaker from Occupy on the agenda? Is Amanda our contact on MLK Day? Do you know?
Is she what?
No, it's Miriam.
Miriam is our
She
contact.
knows the most. So,
And she should be
Harry,
here
could
Sunday.
you check with Miriam about that?
yeah, I will.
Thank you.
I just had a comment on that. When we toured the International Civil Rights, the two founders were there, and they did bring up that there's not a whole lot of color in Occupy, but they're with us, and so it's just something to think about. I don't want to speak, but if somebody does, I have heard that from the CNS too. That where's the color at? So it's just a way of if you can do something with it, because that's kind of what they were bringing up with that. Is, they're with us, and we want to get more involved, and so I don't want somebody speaking there and just identify the Occupy movement as saying something that isn't okay. Just some things I hear out and around.
So an Italian can't speak at MLK Day?
Sure.
So we're putting MLK Day on the agenda for Sunday. Are there more agenda items?
For tonight?
Well, we had a list at the beginning of things that we wanted to talk about on the agenda, and it's not on the board because I salvaged the board, but not where I always.
Did we talk about everything we need to talk about?
We did, yeah.
We missed one,
Okay.
What?
which was being more formal in facilitating the proposals.
Okay. Agenda item on that.
We have, just for historical precedent, we've had various facilitation styles. More towards the beginning, a number of our facilitators were very deliberate in going through the steps of the proposal. That is, read the proposal, hear concerns and comments and clarifying questions, hear friendly amendments, check for support, check for reservations, note how many people are standing aside, and then finally ask for blocks. I think if we go through the mechanisms of those steps, we'll see less blocks because we've offered an explicit chance for people to record their objections without seeing the block as their only way to say this isn't right. And also reservations, when they are issued, need to be recorded in the minutes, specifically word for word, to say this person said this is a bad idea, so that they can be on record as their disagreement having been heard, so they can be sure their voice was heard. I don't know that it really has to be a proposal, but I would like to maybe a resolution strongly encourage that we move back towards that, because it seemed to be, even though it's a little longer, it seems to help offer the space.
I can look up on Occupy Wall Street website and see the actual procedures of how it's done and which order it's done, and then send it to the facilitation group to see how they feel about it.
Okay, that would be great. Thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, so we'll be addressing that again as well on Sunday? Or that should probably go to facilitation first.
It should be facilitation only because it's a group thing.
So that will go to the facilitation working group first?
I'd just like to make a comment that I hope we'll get to the facilitation working group. I agree partially with what Stephanie mentioned about the facilitators being more in line with procedure. However, my opinion was that often that procedure was taking precedent over hearing people's full discussion. It felt like things were being pushed to a conclusion, and I would hope that our facilitators would do that.
More discussion? More agenda
I think we need an environmental working group, ecological working group, something like that, and I'm willing to start trying to pull that together because I haven't seen that as part of our Occupy. I think if there's anything in this world that we need to do is deal effectively with our environmental problems, and we should be in the forefront of that. So I'm going to tell people, I'd just like to hear your temperature check with you guys about that. We agree.
I would say, one of the first things would be to approach the strong environmental contingent that was here at the beginning that's kind of drifted off, I think, been somewhat disenfranchised, and bring them back if we can get them.
I did approach them Tuesday night at the Deep Green Resistance book study, mentioned that. So, now, may I ask you the right question based on your recent comment? When you said disenfranchised?
Yeah.
I don't see how anybody in this group's been disenfranchised. That's just my opinion.
Okay.
Maybe they didn't like what was happening, but everybody here gets a say in the vote. That's not being disenfranchised.
I would argue that Marie's exactly right, because the type of groupthink that happens when process goes badly, and when process is rushed, and when process is favored over the spirit consensus, leads to frustration, leads to disengagement, leads to helplessness, and people just give up. And we've seen a lot of it. Part of it can be burnout, can be attributed to burnout from the various things we've been dealing with, but a lot of it can be attributed to burnout from dealing with this process. And I think, and distrust of this process, and even distrust with each other. And I think we've reached a point where we've lost some people. We may be able to get some of them back, but we may not be able to.
Right. And actually, I would, in speaking for myself, say that that's a really thriving community already that I would like to see be interacting with Occupy. And my understanding is that, in fact, a lot of that movement away from Occupy was somewhat about wanting to be really invested in the environmental ecological piece and not sure how that fits here. So if we can find a place for that to fit here, I think that disenfranchisement is probably the wrong word. But if we could find more of a focus of that here, then we see that community come back in, and that's a community that has a huge amount of vigor and energy. So, anyway.
Yeah, I was just saying for your response, I feel like there is still a very strong environmental contingent here. Tactics and orientation may differ, but a lot of us are very committed and have been for a long time to environmental issues. I mean, climate change is number one for a lot of people.
So this should be a great working group. Thank you, Bert.
This Saturday, people are coming to my house and picking up things from my shed that belong to them that were in the kitchen. So if you feel like I have something of yours, this Saturday is the day to pick it up. If you cannot come to my house this Saturday, let me know what it is that you have there, and I can bring it to you at the next GA, or we can make other arrangements. But I'm staying home on Saturday so people can come and pick up their stuff. So, yeah. And I am not bringing it to the plaza.
Here it is.
Any more announcements?
I'm assuming you all know that at the General Store and Cafe in Pittsburgh, on February 10th, we're having a fundraiser. There's great food there, nutritious, for the most part local and some organic, and affordable for most of us. And for those who can't afford it, the rest of us can pitch in and we can have a meal there. But the idea is to have the same big bowl for fundraising money for
Thanks for doing that.
I said 6 in my email to Joyce, the owner. So, you know, what do you, I mean, 6 to closing? Why not?
And if anybody wants to see a 5-minute slideshow on billboards, do it right now and do that. So.
Any more announcements? Okay, thanks everyone for coming out tonight after a full week of events and being part of the GA.
Yay. Oh, there's these flyers that somebody brought by and some newspapers. So there's 3 newspapers all about Occupy and flyers. Feel free to take some.
And I guess keep carrying this whiteboard.